Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the SBK Betting Podcast, where we are properly in the end of the flat season. We can feel it with the weather outside. The ground is going soft pretty much all over. And with the latter stage of the season in mind, we've got some good racing this weekend. We've got Group 1 action at Haydock, the Sprint Cup, which also hosts the Old Borough Cup. So we're going to get cracking straight into it. But before we do, we can give you a bit of a roundup of last week's winners, as we're delighted that we had a nap treble and a couple of additionals to that. TC continues on his good form. King of Cities at 2-1. Really liked his pedigree, and you were right to give us that insight into that horse. He's a horse to follow from Chester. He was 2-1. Tamfana definitely showed her class at Sandown. She was 11-10. I got Dreamy at 6-5 and Ross was Flight at 6-5. So I think that for the most part, it was a good weekend for the fillies that we showed up at. So great stuff, guys. I know that there is good racing this weekend, so we'll head straight into it. And as I said, that Haydock Sprint Cup, I think, has really held up. We saw a lot of good early entries, and the one main horse that hasn't come into the declarations is the multiple Group 1 winner Kinross, who probably was on a bit of a retrieval mission, but there is 16 runners lining up, and it's very much about the 3-year-olds in this field. We've got the very good horse and Commonwealth Cup winner Inishirin heading the market at 5-2. Elite Status for the same owner, Sheikh Mohammed Abeid, is 5-1. Swing Along is 11-2. Just saw 10-1. Spycatcher 10s. Buccaneer 42, 14-1. Kind of Blue also 14s, as is Montasib. And Anaf back after a long layoff, as he was out with various issues from his trip to Dubai, is in the betting as well. So TC, start with you, man, in form. In overall context, this race has held up well. We know that we always get soft ground conditions, but it looks to be a strong renewal.
Yeah, the weather's really taken a turn for the worse this week, hasn't it? So I imagine it's going to be soft, maybe even heavy ground at Haydock. It doesn't look good for the remaining couple of days before racing gets involved from the filming of this podcast. 3-year-olds have dominated this race in the past, but they haven't won it since 2019. However, it looks like that minor drought, is going to end this year unless Swing Along or Montasib causes a little bit of a shock, albeit Swing Along's definitely got a chance. I have nothing against either of Sheikh Mohammed Obeid's runners. I think they deserve to be at the top of the market. Both will love the conditions that they'll get at Haydock. Inishirin was very good in the Commonwealth Cup, and I actually thought he ran pretty well in the July Cup as well, despite losing at a short price. He was strong at the line in that race and perhaps wasn't ridden as aggressively as he should have been in the early stages. Elite Status needs to prove that he's a proper Group 1 horse, but so far this year he's looked very good in 2 runs, so there is every chance he could take that step forward. Out of those two, I think I would slightly edge towards Inishirin, but I just don't want to be taking a short price in this race. We see time and time again when the rain comes, albeit it's going to suit both of these at the top of the market, we get shock after shock at this stage of the season. And I just don't want to be taking a short price despite thinking they are the horses to beat. There is one horse in here that I've followed all year, and that's Just Saw. And he's 10-1, and that's just big enough to make me want to play him again. Look, he's got to turn the form around with Inishirin from the Commonwealth Cup, but he wasn't beaten too far in third, and he actually, in my opinion, shaped as well as the winner did that day, given he pulled fiercely in the early stages of the race. Clive Cox has done very well, not only with this type of horse, a 3-year-old sprinter, but also in this race. And I feel like he's going to get Jasur ready to run a career best. He does need to settle in the early stages. That is a big question mark for me. But he's got the talent, in my opinion, to justify what is a pretty fair price in a race like this. And at the worst, I expect him to hit the frame. And at 10-1, you're going to get good each way value there.
Yes, certainly, as you say, a horse that sort of holds its own but hasn't really reached Group 1 level. And I think when you've got a Group 1 winner in here like Inishirin, he looks like he should be tough to beat and was only just ahead of Jasur last time, but there's a lot more value in his price for TC. Ross, there's a horse in here, Buccaneer Forte, which is a bit of the sort of the mystery sort. Official rating is 120. He's the one that missed Royal Ascot, has missed a very good chunk of the season, but has Group 1 form as well with Inishirin. But there's been a long layoff, so that might be a concern for anyone that has been interested in the top rated in the field.
Yeah, and I'm not sure he's entirely worthy of that lofty rating of 120 either, Jess. I think sort of some bits of collateral form have been let down since. And I agree with TC that I think the 3-year-olds are where it lies. Gimme the Beat Boys was finishing fast against him at the beginning of the season when Bucano Fuerte held on. Gimme the Beat Boys is a mystery as well into himself. Ran well last time, ran no sort of race at Ascot. I would just caveat this by saying that maybe TC has seen a more accurate forecast than me. I had going stick 6.3 and about 2 mil of rain Saturday morning, so I wasn't working on it getting really soft. So factor that in when you listen to me or ignore me. First of all, when you say, well done, Mohammed Al-Baid, Sheikh Mohammed Al-Baid, running 2 against each other, could have very easily split these up and diluted what is a good race. Inisherin is just a horse I've really struggled to gravitate towards, which is probably wrong of me because he's been very consistent. But I don't know whether it's that he ran in a Guineas and then dropped back and sort of looked like a slow dour sprinter as opposed to a real pacey sort. I don't know. I've just not gravitated towards him. I like elite status. I was all over him early on in his 2-year-old career, and then got a bit jittery when he sort of dropped away. Was really heartened to see that Clifford Lee said that they just felt that physically he got a bit lost last year. He's a big horse, done well for the winter. He was quite slow to return, didn't come back till May, then missed the Commonwealth Cup, which was a painful anti-post experience for me for the Commonwealth Cup there, and then came back and ran really well last time in the Hackwood. I thought he just cruised through the race, was much the best. The winning margin wasn't, huge, but I just thought he looked really in control. And I think compared to Inisherin, he's got more potential to go again because he's probably had less chance to really run at a hard pace and show what he can do. So I wanted to be with elite status, wanted to try and find something at a bigger price. I mean, if it goes soft, and I'm thinking this off the hoof, you've got to consider Moss Tucker because he will love conditions. The softer it gets, the better chance he's got. But I thought that Bucano Fuerte, Gimme the Beat Boys, Moss Tucker were probably the pace angle they're going to go forward. Kind of Blue finished really fast behind Gimme the Beat Boys at the Curragh last time. Probably could do with just a slightly stronger pace to run at. Gimme the Beat Boys in the Curragh sort of was able to set his own fractions and just got a breather in at the right time and was able to repel the closers late on. If he gets taken on and has to sort of just run hard from the beginning, and that might make him susceptible to a closer. I thought Kind of Blue is sort of improving with every run. It's got about a length to find with elite status. If he runs to that, he'll be thereabouts in the mix. He's a bigger price. So Kind of Blue was my second selection at an each way price.
Yeah, 14-1 for you there with elite status at 5-1. Yeah, some interesting types in here coming off a layoff like the likes of Anaf 16-1 and Bucano Forte 14-1. I think it's a good market really for a race of this level. There's no obvious one, and a couple here that could just show their class, but as you say, could be a lot of pace on. That is a Sprint Cup. We've got a 25% winnings boost with SBK, so I think that's a huge incentive there for a race which has got good value around, especially if you're going with TC. We just saw it 10-1, or either Kind of Blue or elite status if you're following Ross. Okay, we've got another good handicap at Haydock, and that is the Old Borough Cup. That comes up at 335. Again, that comes up at 225. So an hour earlier. Again, 15 runners head to post here, and Epic Poet 4-1. We've got Divine Comedy 5-1, Grand Alliance 7-1, one for the Gutter 7s, Dancing in Paris 8s, and bigger prices the rest of them. So you've got a lot of form from the Ebor, especially the fourth place horse and the third place horse here. Just some really good hardy handicappers in general. And I think TC, it's whether the likes of Epic Poet, who returns here of the same rating, ran a good race in what was a very messy Ebor in the end. He was hampered. I think he did very well in the circumstances. He's probably the right favourite, but as always, we're probably looking for something outside the obvious.
Yeah, I don't actually know about the right favourite. I think the market might be slightly skew if, and that's not to say Epic Poet doesn't have a good chance. Of course he does, but it's a relatively quick turnaround, and your eye is always drawn to the unlucky horse. Now, I know there are reasons for that. You think they should have performed better in the race if they were granted a little bit of luck, but I don't know. I wasn't convinced with him. He's not the most prolific of animals. He's got a good chance of winning, but it's just not my type of horse. This is a race where I have had mixed fortunes in the past, mainly leaning towards bad fortunes. So I'm not overly hopeful of putting up the winner here, but I had a deep dive into it. I've also, as Ross said, we've got contradictory weather reports, so I'm erring towards soft ground And that's why my selection is going to be the following, which is Divine Comedy. Now, stamina is so important in this race, no matter what. They tend to get racing super early at Haydock. There's a 4 and a bit furlong home straight, and at the top of that turn, they tend to start increasing the pace. So you need to be able to stay in a race like this. There is no question about that. If the ground gets softer, which I was anticipating, but maybe I'm wrong, then stamina becomes even more important. So I wanted to err on the side of a horse that would definitely stay. There are a couple in here that I wasn't convinced with, but were interesting runners, the likes of Knightswood, if he handles the testing ground, and Waxing Gibbous, again, needs to prove that he stays. But Divine Comedy definitely does. He's won over 2 miles. He was placed over 2 mile 4 furlongs. We know he stays the trip. And he's won on soft ground at Haydock, which I think is a big tick in the box if the ground does get testing. Course and distance form here is important when the ground is not quick. I liked his run last time. I thought he shaped pretty well. And the time before that, he absolutely hacked up. So this is a horse in form. He's relatively fresh. He's only had 3 starts this year. Yes, he's gone up the handicap from a mark of 88 to 102. So that's a stone higher than when he started. So he's, got to prove himself against better horses. But I think this race is very much within his realm. And I actually thought Divine Comedy should be favourite.
Okay, and Kyle Fraser back on again. I have to say, just have to correct you, is a she, but I don't think anyone will mind if she does win. Divine Comedy has been a really good servant to the Harry Eustace yard, I have to agree, and Pledge of Allegiance. The run behind that horse, I think, was a super run. And yeah, as you say, possibly is one that can definitely prove to outstay the rest of them. So we'll give Divine Comedy up from TC's perspective, who is 5-1, and possibly should be usurping Epic Poet from a favourites perspective. Would you agree with that, Ross?
Yeah, I think TC. My selection is Epic Poet, but I do agree with everything TC said. That I would almost rather take 5-1 about the fact he's an unlucky loser and find some trouble, because he does just have the profile of that sort of horse. He was unlucky in the Ebor, in that he definitely got the worst of it when poor Crystal Delight went wrong on the bend, got shuffled back. Danny Tudhope was then out wider, used a bit of petrol to get his position back. And then, he's the jockey, no better than me, but he then seemed to sort of sit on him quietly to fill the engine back up again as they were quickening into the straight, and then did some really good late work on. It was almost a ride that they were trying to find out if he stayed. And actually, he weirdly, over a mile 2, mile 4, mile 6, does all his best work inside the last couple of furlongs. You'd expect him perhaps to have travelled a little bit better into the race in the Ebor. But as TC said, it's a longer home straight here at Haydock. They will get racing further out. That will definitely suit him. He's very versatile with regards to ground. He's won on good to soft. He's run well on soft. He ran very well on good to firm at Ascot. He is going to land one of these off a mark of 100. He's a fully fledged cliff horse for me, so you can take a fair chance that he'll land one when I finally give up. But I do like him. I think he's well handicapped. David O'Meara is a really good trainer of these handicappers, so I have no issue with the quick turnaround. So he's first on the list. And then I just wanted to give a mention, and I will have a few pound on Old Grand Alliance, who's a bit of a monkey. It's probably a big ask off top weight after 384 days back off, but he comes in off top weight, but this is a drop in grade, and I think the fact that he's a bit quirky might just suit him if he's finding it just a gear easier. He doesn't seem in love with trying overly hard for the entire race. And first of all, it might just be the time to get him. He's proven he stays. He stayed a mile 7 really well in France in his last start. I think he's got a bit of a class angle. He's won a Group 3. He's run well in group races. Could just see him sort of lobbing around here and finding it a little bit easier and outrunning his odds, for all that this might be a race that tees him up for something into the autumn.
Yeah, I'll never forget when he hung so badly across the track and threw his chances away at Royal Ascot. I think it was a couple of years ago. So is a quirky character, but can win, whereas Epic Poet still is a maiden on these shores. He was a winner in France, his native France, but he's just been the horse that's edging there. Whether it's going to be this weekend, we will see. But Epic Poet at 4-1, and then you can get Grand Alliance at 7-1. So that's if you're following Ross's selections. But as I said, the Haydock Sprint Cup is where SBK are giving 25% winnings boost, and we'll go into our naps next best. We've got international racing as well, so we're going to touch on that with TC as there's more to come come in America, which he'll be focusing on. But we had a good weekend last weekend with our naps selections, and as I said, TC's in fine form. So I'll start with you first from a busy weekend, and also we've got afternoon action at one of your favourite all-weather tracks, and that's Kempton. He's nodding.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, my favourite all-weather track. I love going to Kempton. I love watching racing at Kempton. It's definitely up there in my top 5 tracks in general, to be honest. Definitely number 1 all-weather. And I know that's controversial. It won't be in many people's shortlist, but it is in mine. Both my Nap and Next Best are going to be at Kempton. Obviously, you don't need to worry too much about the track conditions there, being an all-weather track and the terrible weather right now. My Nap is going to be in the Group 3 September Stakes at 2:35 p.m. And that's going to be Lion's Pride for John and Thady Gosden. John Gosden, obviously prior to sharing the training ranks with Thady, he's won this race 4 times in the last 6 years. He targets one of his better horses at the event, trying to win this and then step them up in grade either later in the year or going into next season. And it looks like he's doing exactly the same thing here again with Lion's Pride. Lion's Pride's won 2 of his 3 starts on the all-weather at this track. I think that's a big positive because when you look at his recent form figures, you may be thinking, maybe this horse is kind of levelling off right now, been a touch disappointing. But he goes very well on the all-weather, and I think it's key that John's bringing him back to this venue. He's beaten the likes of Middle Earth at Kempton, Middle Earth obviously being a very good horse, and Measured Time, who is a grade 1 horse over in America right now for Charlie Appleby, both at this track. So again, boosting the form here at Kempton. He hasn't been at his best this term, there's no doubt about that. He needed the run first time up, but his 2 subsequent efforts have been pretty dire, both on the turf. Nevertheless, I think we're going to see a big upturn in fortune, and I'm hopeful that he'll win the 2:35 for the Gosdens. My next best is more of a left field shout. Obviously, last week, the Nap and Next Best did win, but they were both short prices. So I wanted to try and provide a slightly bigger price this week. And it's going to be a horse that I've had in my horses to follow all year, and that's Raki. He runs in the 5:30 at Kempton. This is a super competitive 2-mile handicap. You can make a case for plenty of these. There are informed types from good yards, the likes of Smart Prescott's Al Medina, who's won 2 of the last 3. A Barrage for Simon Pearce, who's very much an all-weather specialist. Coco Royale's in there for William Haggis towards the top of the handicap as well. So you can go plenty of ways. But as I say, Raki's been a horse on my tracker for a long time now. I've been waiting for Alan King to step him up in trip. And he did that last time out over 1 mile, 6 furlongs at Sandown, where he was just pipped on the line by the aforementioned Al Medina, who reopposes. Raki's now got a £10 turn in the handicap with that runner, so I'm hopeful that the form will be reversed. And now steps up in trip even further, which I think is a huge positive for him. He goes very well on the all-weather. We saw last year in 2 Kempton runs that he definitely handles the track, albeit it was over an inadequate trip, so he didn't win. And I'm hopeful from a nice draw in stall 5, he'll win from bottom weight.
Okay, a good, interesting one, and one that hopefully if the Nap and Next Best lands, we're going to get a good price out of that if you double it up. So thanks to TC, his favourite track, Kempton. I've had a long love affair with the track as well, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, depending on what kind of time of the year it is. But I think it's great racing on Saturday. It's their best meeting of the year. And of course, the likes of the Great Enables won that September Stakes in the past, and that looks like a nice renewal that. Okay, thank you to TC. We'll move on to Ross next, as I was wondering where it come from, and I promise you I'm not going to give you a hard time where you choose, and I feel like every week it's going to be keep Jess happy. We're not got to jump season yet. There's one jumps meeting, and do you know what? I'm going to be there. And I was hoping you might be pointing me the right direction because I'll be covering it for Racing TV. But alas, there's still a flat focus from Ross's Naps and Next Best.
Yeah, we're into September, Jess. It is coming. The jumps is coming. Do you know what? My nap actually was going to be from my favourite all-weather track, Wolverhampton, late in the evening, but it wasn't declared, so I'll keep that for another time. The nap does come over the jumps in the 6:20 at Stratford. The Ollie Greeno and Josh Guerrero trained El Baracho ran well at this track 11 days ago. Travelled really well for the race, despite jumping slightly out to his right. Had everything in behind on toast, and then just didn't see the trip out at all. He stopped very quickly, but he's yet to prove he stays that far. Drops back in trip now. Clearly the track will suit him. He's £4 lower than his last winning mark, off a mark now of 130. Toby Wynn gets on well with him, still claims £3. He had quite a quiet year last year, Toby Wynn, so having raced through the early part of his claim, he's still got £3. He's good value for that. It doesn't look a deep race. So I think Albaracho looks like a good chance in the 620. And then sticking to the boss's orders, the next best comes in the 135 from Ascot. And it's the George Barry trained Spangled Mac. He just caught the eye the last twice. He was given what I think we should perhaps call overly patient rides at Newbury and Chester. He's off a mark in 96, which is perfectly workable. Billy Loughnane jumps on now. George Barry's on record saying that he thinks Ascot is a track that really suits Spangled Mac and that he felt he would land a big one at the track. He's yet to do that. Don't know whether you can call this a big one, but I think it's a decent pot. Mild concern over the trainer's form. He's 8% for the last 14 days, but as with all these stats, if you do a slightly deeper dive, he's 3 from his last 16 in the last 7 days, so that reads a whole lot better. I think they've perhaps been trying to gear him up for something. I'm hoping this is it. So Spangled Mac is the next best in the 135 from Ascot.
Yeah, okay, good stuff. Thank you for that. That helps out as I prepare for my first jumps meeting. Not really this season, but I sort of feel like nearly as we get our heads round the jumps code coming back. I've got a Napa next best selection. One from Kempton, one from Ascot, where I'm going to start. The second race of the day, it's a heritage handicap, 3-year-old only, 1 mile 4, a horse that I followed all season, Goodwood Odyssey. He actually really caught my eye at Kempton on his seasonal reappearance under Benoit de la Sayette, where he put up a big run under a penalty behind J Ash, and I just thought that this horse would be quite interesting in handicaps going forward on the turf. He proved that at Sandown. He's been running in good levels since, and actually got off one again at Goodwood recently, where they had the blinkers on for the first time. I think the ground really helped him. It was on softer ground. I think if they've got a bit of rain, which looks like there'd be a bit around, it will definitely be juice in it. Goodwood Odyssey with Benoit back on board should be a horse to follow in that race. And then back at Kempton, the 2 o'clock, the Serenia Stakes, a 2-year-old race, which has been quite formative in the past. Starlast won it last year and has gone on to be a pretty decent level 3-year-old, but also went off to the Breeders' Cup. Now, this has got a horse called Symbol of Strength for Tom Marquand, who's on for the first time for Adrian Keatley. He ran a massive race to finish third behind Cool Hoof Luke in the Gimcrack Stakes last time. I don't know why he went off at 80-1, considering he'd won a maiden, but I suppose connections or kind of thinking that he's a bit of a step too far soon for him. But he's got a rating of 107 in this race. He is the top rated by some way, and if he could put that form up here at Kempton and what looks like a lesser race, I think he's got a great chance. So Symbol of Strength for me, along with Goodwood Odyssey. Now, I mentioned what we've got international racing. Kentucky is another feature after very good prize money they had on offer last week, and we saw Bellum Nostrum was a winner and provided Andrew Balding with a good day out, and Frankie Dettori, he's going to be partnering Aidan O'Brien's runners this weekend. I suppose that's one of the headline stories, TC, but what else have we got to look forward to at Kentucky Downs on Saturday?
Yeah, plenty of good racing, lots of graded stakes events. Obviously, Frankie for Aidan, as you said there, are going to be the main draw for European punters. They've got 3 chances. Greenfinch runs, and I think it's 3-1 on the morning line for his race. Then you've got Chief Little Rock, who goes in the Kentucky Turf Cup. That's a grade 2 worth $2 million. He is somehow 6-4 favourite in the UK. There is no chance he goes off that short. He'll be more like 4-1. So if you do like that horse, don't bet him now. Just wait. And then they also have a runner in the Mint Millions, and that is Mountain Bear, who we saw at the Breeders' Cup last year, ran a great second behind a stablemate. He's 10-1 on the morning line. You'll probably get a fair price if you like him, but he is facing off against Ancient Rome for Jamie Spencer and Charlie Hills, who actually won at this venue last year. So I'd actually prefer Ancient Rome of the two, and it could be a European winner right there. But it's another great day of racing at Kentucky Downs. I'll be on Sky Sports Racing covering all of the meet. It's super difficult to get winners there. Big field, huge prize money. What would you expect? But there has been a front runner bias. So if you are playing, look towards those who are likely to be in the front in the early stages.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, it's been interesting to follow that turf track there at Kentucky Downs, and the European horses trying to take advantage of it. So we hope we have given you some more winners as we did last week, and thank you as always to TC and to Ross. We've got a small matter of the Irish Champions weekend coming up the weekend after this one, so we'll have plenty more to delve into when you next join us. But if you are new to the podcast and you're a new SBK users as well, you get £30 in free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. You can head to SBK for lots of other offers and promotions throughout the weekend, and hopefully, as I said, we found you a couple of winners. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.